Oh, there we go. That's what happens when you let the talent operate the AV equipment. Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited for today. We're gonna have a lot of fun. If you can see the table in front of me, Aaron, take that other shot just so they can see this. We got gear galore, and I got even more over here. Today is gonna be a lot of fun. So you got interfaces, we got two iPads. It's iPad Palooza in here. Today is gonna be a lot of fun though. We're talking about how to use an audio interface with Playback. We have a lot to talk about, so I do want to get started, but we're gonna just hop off just one more second and we'll come back on. I want to give everyone a chance to get going, give everyone a chance to join us. I had a pretty cool day today. My two twins, 5-year-old twins, graduated from preschool, so we ran up north a couple minutes to see them and got back just a little bit ago. So that was a very fun day, cool to see them. One thing I was gonna mention though, I would encourage you to pay attention. I was challenged last night. We were sitting there with the family watching The Voice. My son's on my lap, again, he's 5, and he says, "Hey Dad, look, they're doing what you said." And I said, what are you talking about, kid? And he said, "They're wearing both their in-ears like you said in your webinar." And I thought, oh wow, he paid attention. So hopefully you also paid attention last week and you're here this week and you will pay attention. But again, I'm really excited you're here. I'm glad you're here. Do me a favor again, we're gonna hop off here in a second, take about 2 minutes and we'll be right back. Let me know where you're watching from. Let us know if you're currently using Playback. If so, are you using Pro, Premium, Intro? Let us know what features you're excited about. And yeah, primarily let us know where you're watching from if you're using Playback. And again, really excited you're here. Give us about 2 minutes and then we'll get started. Also, most important thing, this is why we do this, and I almost forgot, hit share. If you feel like anyone would like to see this, tag them in the post, hit share, retweet, whatever you kids do these days, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes. See you guys in a second. Thanks. Thanks so much for joining us for how to connect a audio interface to Playback. My name is Will Doggett, Director of Products here at MultiTracks.com. Again, means a lot that you decided to join us, and I'm excited and glad that you are here. I mentioned in the pre-show bit, if you feel like anyone would benefit from watching this, would enjoy it, just do me a favor, hit tag them in it. I don't even know what you kids do these days. Share it on Snapchat, whatever it is. Also, let us know if it's, what are the names, Yanni or Rebecca or whatever that stupid meme is that's going around. Leave a comment in there and let us know. It's the most ridiculous thing ever. Big waste of time. Tyler has officially lost it now. So I'm really excited for today. It's going to be a lot of fun. Aaron, let's show them the gear shot one more time. So you can see we have tons of gear here. My goal with this is to try to be as practical and hands-on as I can. And we'll talk about using different audio interfaces, the benefits of this, and why. I do want to preface and let you know up front, though, ask us questions throughout it, but I don't have your exact setup, so I'll do my best to get there to try to answer any questions you have. I'm going to not be able to recover now after making that joke, but let us know, and I will do my best to answer. But again, I don't have your exact sound console, so I may not be able to do it exactly. But I think everything we're going to cover is going to help no matter what setup you have, no matter what you're doing. So let's get started. Let's dig into it. So we're talking about audio interfaces. I've got two here. And again, like I said, this is very gear heavy. So this guy is a Focusrite. Which one is this? Focusrite 2i4 Scarlett. Here's the gear shot so you take a look, right? I've got this guy. I also am going to be working with the iConnect Audio 4 Plus. This one is one of my personal favorites, right? Really cool stuff. Powers the iPad with this special cable that we have. We'll talk about this in a second. But let me show you the back of this. So just to kind of start us, we'll get some light in there. There we go. So you see we have these different outputs. So the iConnect Audio 4 Plus has 6 different outputs that you can split things and do different things with. And this 2i4, what do we have here? This looks like it has 4 unbalanced outputs. Those are RCA outputs, 2 balanced. I think these are mirrored, so I think you only get 4 instead of 6. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But the reason I want to show you these 2 devices up front is to let you know when I talk about audio interfaces, there are audio interfaces that have 2 outputs. The 2i2, I believe, from Focusrite has 2 outputs. But I'm primarily going to be talking about audio interfaces that have multiple outputs. And there's some really key benefits to having those multiple outputs you saw. Let's start at the very top for me. So let's say I've got my set ready to go. We're going to do What a Beautiful Name by Hillsong Worship. Everything is perfect. It's going to be the perfect set, right? We're excited. We're good to go with everything. But then suddenly we get the dreaded call the bass player cannot be there, right? The bass player is sick. So here's what I'm gonna do first. In playback, I'm gonna do one change. I'm gonna tap bass and unmute the bass, right? So bass is now going. And then here's the key. I'm gonna use an audio interface like that Audio 4 Plus, like I mentioned before. It has 6 individual outputs, so that is gonna be really, really beneficial and helpful for me to make that happen. But the big thing here is I'm gonna take a direct box, and this is the Radial Pro DI. Let me unplug this, hopefully it doesn't pop, there we go. Let's pretend this is the bass player's direct box, right? And just again, to kind of overstate the point, just so you guys see this. So XLR output to the soundboard, this is our input. So our bass player calls out sick, what do? Use our audio interface. We're gonna just take a normal 1/4-inch cable, right, that we'd use for our guitar, plug it out of the back of our interface here. All right, so let's just plug this in, okay? And then we're gonna plug this into the bass player's direct box. So using an audio interface is really beneficial when you have missing musicians, right? Your bass player calls out sick, it's always the bass player. They're always the ones that miss for some reason. You're just gonna come out of your interface, a separate output, right? There we go. You're gonna go into your direct box. You wanna make sure you unmute that setting in playback, and you're ready to go. So one of the key benefits for me, again, you've gotta use an audio interface that has multiple outputs. In this case, I'm talking about the 4 Plus, which is one of my favorites. And you want to take the output out of the iPad or iPhone directly into their direct box. So what's cool is back at the sound console, it's gonna show up as if the bass player is there. I always like to jokingly say, but it's true. Everyone's gonna go, man, this sounds amazing. The bass played the part exactly right, and there's no sass. And maybe the bass player, you just tell them next week, don't worry about it, we got it. We bought the MultiTracks, we don't need you. I'm kidding. But very, very big benefit is filling in for missing musicians. The other thing, again, if you have an audio interface with 6 outputs like this 6 Plus here, right, or 4 Plus rather, 4, and then I have phones for right here, for headphones, so I could do that. What's great about this is I can separate my outputs from my iPad, and that's gonna give my sound engineer more control. So what's really, really nice about this is I could say, let's say click is maybe 1 and 2, right? So let's say click and guide is 1. Let's say we do pads here, 2 and 3, we get stereo pads. Let's do bass out of 4. And then we also have 5 and 6 that we could use. And I like to use, when I use the 4 Plus, I use 5 and 6 as separate discrete outputs. So let's use 5 and 6. If we did these as pads, this is bass, let's make this like extra BGVs, stereo BGVs. But the benefit of this is using an audio interface like that is going to allow your sound engineer to have control over each individual element. So if it's a lower part of the song and they go to raise the loop, if everything's down the same line, then suddenly shaker is going to start blaring. Now, one thing you could do obviously is go in and individually mix each song based on the song, right? Bass is a little loud on this, so let's turn it down, synth bass. That's going to help. But the big key benefit, again, of using an audio interface is the fact that we get those separate outputs. So when you adjust pad, it's just adjusting pad. When you're adjusting bass, it's just adjusting bass. And it helps make playing with tracks, it feels like you're playing one with tracks, not 2 tracks. We talked about that in our Getting Started webinar with tracks. But it also makes it feel like it's a part of the band, right? It doesn't feel like you're pressing spacebar and you're Milli Vanilli in it, right? And you're faking it. It starts to integrate into your sound, which is really nice. It allows, especially if you have control over your in-ears, if you're wearing both in-ears, like I mentioned in the beginning, you have control to say, yeah, let's bring the pads down a little bit more if we want, instead of everything together, which is really, really great. The final benefit, and I'm sure there's many, many more, but this is the final one we're gonna talk about, is it allows you to get at the very least, a stereo signal out of your iPad. So by default, and let us know, if you're using an audio interface, let us know in the comments what interface you're using. Or if you're not, you're likely using a cable like this. The typical one that I get from Sweetwater is the Hosa CMP, I think 105 is potentially what it is. And basically what you have is you have your headphone cable, and then you have 2 separate 1/4-inch cables, right? So by default, coming out of my iPad, I have 2 options. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna split click and tracks to the left. I'm gonna use the right side, right is red. I'm gonna use that to send the rest of my tracks. Now, with just doing this, I'm getting essentially mono tracks, and I'm getting mono click and guide. Mono click and guide is perfectly fine, but typically we like tracks to at least be stereo. So if I use an audio interface that has at least 2 outputs that focus right, or at least 4 outputs, or 3 outputs, if you can find one with 3 outputs, that would be odd. That's gonna allow you to do click. You could potentially split guide if you want, but the big benefit is you're going to get stereo tracks, and stereo tracks is going to give you a fuller sound. If your system's in stereo, you're really going to be able to feel the benefit. And more importantly, if your in-ears are in stereo, you're definitely going to feel the benefit of the width. If you remember last week, talking about in-ears and some of the benefits of stereo, it gives us that whole field instead of just up and down, right? So those are some of our benefits. Again, it allows us to fill in for missing musicians by just coming right out of the interface into a direct box. It allows us to give our sound engineer more control of our mix. And then finally, we can get a stereo signal out of our iPad or iPhone, which is really, really big. So let's start 2 more questions, and then we'll take a quick break, and we'll dig into actually making this happen. So what interfaces should we use? You're maybe looking at this going, okay, I love Playback. I talked to someone today, someone in Australia that had a question about what audio interface should I use with Playback. And here's the quick basic answer. Anything that is USB class compliant. And what that means is, one, it needs to be USB, so you can't use the Facebook message from, I think, Daniel last week. If you're watching Daniel say, hey, he said, hey, can I use a FireWire interface with Playback? No, you cannot, unfortunately, because it's a limitation of iOS. So it's got to be USB. It also needs to be class compliant. So what that means is it uses all the bits that are used to write USB. It doesn't add anything extra, right? Typically, if your interface comes with a CD and you need to install the CD or install what's called a driver to use it, it's probably not going to work with an iPad or iPhone and running Playback. So first thing, USB class compliant audio interface should work. Now, if you want very specific references and options, we'll share this link, but you can go to multitracks.com/playback, go to our Playback page, and click on a View Supported Devices link. We'll share the exact link here in a second so you can see that. And that's going to show you what we consider or call supported devices. So what that means is we have those devices in Office, right? We have an iConnect Audio 4 Plus. We have a 2i4 in Office, 2i6, tons of interfaces here in Office. That just means if you have a problem, you can email us. We're going to go grab the interface, plug it in, test it out. Our QA guy, Evan, is going to test it, do a fantastic job. Shout out to Evan. Thanks for all you do. And is going to say, hey, it works, it doesn't work, here's how to fix it. So I would encourage you, if you're looking for an interface, trying to figure out what you should use, check out that link. Again, we'll share the link so that you can find that. Check out that link and buy one of those interfaces. And we link out to Sweetwater for most of those stuff. We're big fans of Sweetwater, what they do. The other thing you can do is call your Sweetwater sales engineer. Go to sweetwater.com if you don't have a sales engineer and ask them, hey, what audio interfaces work with Playback? We have a great relationship with them. And I've gotten probably 6 emails just this year from sales engineers just going, just want to make sure this is going to work before I suggest it. So you know you'll be in good hands if you go that direction. So again, any USB class compliant interface, but I'd suggest purchasing one of our supported devices. Would be my personal suggestion. Now, before you connect your interface, a few things I want to mention. Number one, check for firmware updates for your device. Devices that are really smart, like the iConnect Audio 4 Plus here, typically have firmware that get loaded onto them. That fixes bugs, it adds new features. It's the way that the manufacturer can expand what these boxes can do. What's really important though is there's sometimes that Apple pushes an update out that breaks an audio interface, right? And so the audio manufacturers need to write new firmware, change some of the zeros to ones and some of the ones to zeros to get things right. And then they're going to give you a file you can load on your 4 Plus or whatever interface you have. So I would encourage you to check for firmware updates for your device. Another key thing, I kind of briefly mentioned on this, but I really want to stress this. Make sure you check for OS updates for your iPhone or iPad. Now, two-sided. One, if you're on a really, really old version of OS, you probably should update if you can. But the other thing is, as soon as a brand new OS comes out, you want to make sure you don't update immediately. Now, one, you have to think of your playback rig, if you will, as your iPad, your iPhone. You have Playback the app, but then you also have all the other pieces of gear that you have included with this. You have your MIDI controllers. You have your audio interfaces. It's really, really key that one, we'll let you know when Playback is compatible with OS, but you need to make sure that your audio interface is compatible as well too. So again, they're going to push out an update. They're going to install tell you the driver and give you an updated driver if it needs it, or updated firmware rather. So you want to check on that. You also want to check on the OS, which is really important. And again, if you're using Playback, check with us if you find an interface. Someone reached out recently, I can't remember what it was, but said, hey, will this interface work? And as we looked through the specs, we said, well, we're not sure because it doesn't say USB class compliant. So probably no. Check out one of our supported devices instead. That is kind of the quick introduction to this. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a quick break. I'm gonna show you one of the brand new features of Playback that is actually out today. So if you joined us probably 2 webinars ago, I gave you a preview of this feature. That's the ability to add a click to a pad track. We just released this update today. If you're watching the webinar now, go to the App Store, search for Playback, and you can download and use this new feature. So take a quick look at this preview video that I shot to show you how this feature works. Hey guys, this is Will Doggett, Director of Products here at MultiTracks.com. I want to take a quick second to show you the newest feature to Playback, and that is the ability to add click to pad. Now, when we released pads, I guess about a month ago now, one of the things people ask for almost immediately is, when can I add click to pad? Well, now you can do it, and there's some really cool features that I think you're going to enjoy. So let me take you through those. So very first thing I'm going to do, go to the Add Song menu. Choose one of the pads from the pads menu here. I'm going to choose the brand new guitar pads collection that we made. Now you'll see when you go to select a pad from this menu, you have the option to enable a click. So you can turn on the click, and then you can choose any tempo, any time signature. So let's choose 95 BPM, let's keep it at 4/4, and hit add. So that pad is gonna download into my set list. So the cool thing about this is before you download your pad, you can choose tempo and time signature, and then after your pad downloads, you can make changes to the click without having to re-download all your content. Okay, so now that the pad has downloaded, I can long press on the click fader here, and you can see the accent, quarter, eighth notes, all the different levels of the click. So what's great is I can subdivide the click, just like you can do with any other click track or song in your set. So one of the cool things about this is you can go in and choose a click sound that's consistent across all your songs. That's also going to carry over to your click and pad. So I could choose blip. Let's change our click sound there. Press play. And again, I have control over all the different levels here. So let's bring our quarters down, eighth notes down a little bit. And then I can fold this layer back up if I want and adjust the overall level of my click. Now, again, like I mentioned before, what's really nice, let's say we get this loaded in and we realize we're in rehearsal, we need to change the tempo. So let's go into edit here, and let's hit our edit song menu, and let's change the tempo of this. So we'll bump it up to 115. Let's even change the time signature, 3/4, hit update. And now the click that is underneath of our pad has updated. The best part of this is it doesn't change the tempo of your pad. That stays free flowing, and it immediately will change your click that's included. And again, if you want to take click out now, you can go back into the edit song menu, hit update, and your pad's going to be there without click. So this is a brand new feature in Playback. You can check out the new update available today to try this out. Best thing of all, this is completely free. So thanks for watching, and download the new version of Playback. Let us know what you think. Thanks guys, bye. All right, there you go. It's kind of weird. It's like, man, I think I had a different haircut then, and it comes out to Willow with a different haircut. It's a little trippy. Anyway, we're back. So that is the new click to pad features available in, what version are we on here? 5.0.9. That's available in the App Store today. Really, really cool. All that is free, which is great. Any tempo, any time signature, the ability to adjust after you add is really, really cool. So check it out. Let us know what you think. If you like it, leave us a review on the App Store. If you have any feedback for us, hey, I wish I could do this. Someone last week, I think, said, hey, I wish I could add a count off to that. Send us that feedback. We really appreciate that and value it. And let us know what you think. So available today, 5.0.9 in the App Store. Download and check that out. So let's get started. What do we need to use an audio interface with Playback? So the very first thing is you're going to need a Playback Premium subscription. Playback Premium, you can get a 30-day free trial to try this out, but this is the highest available tier for Playback, and it allows you to go in and use smart routing, multi-outs, some of the cool stuff, live reorder, some of the cool features that we have. The best part about this, check out that link, MultiTracks.com/playback. You'll see all the features of Intro, of Pro, and Premium. Intro has a lot of really, really great features, and I think almost every feature we've released in about the past year has gone into all 3 versions, so it's available for free as well too in Intro. But Premium is what's going to unlock the ability to use an audio interface. So if you haven't tried Premium yet, I would encourage you, go to MultiTracks.com/playback, check that out. The other way you can get to this is in the app, press the settings button in the upper right-hand corner here. So that's what this guy looks like. And then you can go to, let's see, where do we go for this? About, and then hit Manage Subscription. And that's gonna show you the different subscription levels that are available in-app. And you can purchase and subscribe through the app. Now, one thing I will say is if you do it through the App Store, it's a little more expensive than it is through the site. So the best thing to do is go to multitracks.com/playback and check that out. But even if you're just on your iPhone, iPad, you can go in and see all the different features that are available. So again, try 30-day free trial of Premium, and that's the best way to get started. And you're gonna need that in order to use your audio interface. The other thing we're gonna need, when we talk about using audio interfaces in Playback, a real big key thing here is power. We need to make sure the audio interface is powered. If you're using something like the 4 Plus here, oops, and I just unplugged it, you'll notice it has a power supply that comes with it. So what a lot of people do is they plug their audio interface in directly into their iPhone and go, why is it not powering it? Make sure you use this power adapter. So if your interface has power, plug that in. That's gonna be beneficial. That's gonna work really, really well. There's some interfaces that don't draw too much power, and those you can plug right in and they're gonna work. If you plug in an interface and it says this device uses too much power, then you know that is why. So let me show you kind of the secret sauce to make this happen, and this is this adapter right here. Okay, so this is the Apple USB 3.0 camera connection kit, camera adapter, and we're gonna share the link with you in the chat to check this out. But the cool thing about this adapter is it essentially does what this cable from iConnectivity does for any interface. So what's great about this, you plug this into your device here, right? So there's my iPad. And again, this works iPad or iPhone. I'm gonna plug it in, and then there's basically 2 inputs here. So this one is for power, so I'm gonna still power from my other iPad for a moment. I'm gonna plug this in, and this is just using my iPhone cable that came with my iPhone or iPad and the power brick. So just default iPad power here. I've got that plugged in, and then you have this other outlet here that's USB. So what you would do is take your USB cable, and I've got one conveniently located in front of me, and I'm gonna plug this into the camera adapter, okay? Right, and then the other end of this is going to go into my interface. And let's see if this guy works. I don't think we need power for this. What is this, the 2i4? So let's see what happens. So I'll plug that in. And nothing. So this one is one that requires extra power, which I will show you here in a second how to get that. But essentially what you would do, right, interface into adapter, and there we go, you can see USB. I've got power for my iPad and iPhone here, and then I'm using that 3.0 camera adapter to make that happen. Now, what if you get in the situation I'm in where I need extra power? What you're gonna wanna do is do a in-between and use a powered USB hub. So there we go. So this is just, I think I got these at the Apple store down the street. We bought a few of them when we first launched multi-outs. It's USB 2.0 4 port hub. There's the model number, check it out. Oh, there we go, if you wanna see that. But just any powered USB hub. So what this means is it has USB ports, it has a cable for a USB cable, then it has power here. So what you're gonna do is plug this hub in and power it, then you wanna plug your interface into the hub. This is the key, right? Plug your interface into the hub, make sure you get the right side, and then come out of your hub into this adapter. What that's gonna do is that's gonna provide that extra power that if your interface needs it, it's gonna give you all the extra power that you need, which is key. So that's really, really crucial there. The other benefit of using the hub is if you have a USB MIDI controller, you have a MIDI controller that doesn't have 5-pin DIN MIDI ports, which look like this guy, right? So there's our normal MIDI. If I have a controller that has MIDI like that, just come out of the controller into your interface. Playback is gonna see your controller through that, which is gonna work well. If not though, what you can do is use that USB hub, and the same way I plug my interface in here, I'm just gonna plug that MIDI controller into one of the extra ports, and again, I'm gonna come out of the USB hub, there we go, and I'm gonna plug that into this USB port on my device. So this adapter, this Apple adapter here, really is the key in making all this happen. And you can have the ability to use almost any interface and use it and also power your interface as well. So again, this is the USB 3 Apple Lightning to USB 3 camera adapter cable. They used to have, I think they actually have another one that's smaller and it's thinner. It's maybe probably $10 cheaper, but get this one. And the key here is it has power and it also has USB connectivity, which is really, really the key here to making this happen. And again, the other thing that you can use is a powered USB hub that's gonna provide you a little bit extra power if you need it for an audio interface like this Focusrite does here. Now, one other thing I want to show you, and this is someone in our, I think in our Facebook group just recently asked about this, so I thought this would be a good thing to address. What if we're in a situation where we have our audio interface, we want our computer by our drummer, or maybe you're the worship leader, you want your computer up front, but you want to keep your audio interface back at the soundboard, right? Or back at the snake so that you can then plug into that and go to the soundboard. What most people would typically do, especially if you're a gamer or you're someone that you've got your setup in your house and everything's set perfect, you're probably familiar with things that look like this, right? So these are USB extenders, just one side here, and then this guy. And you typically would plug in, right? I'd plug this into my computer, I'd plug this into the USB device to extend it. Let me give you one thing that I can say definitively for today. Do not use this cable. Do not buy a USB extender. Take this guy and throw it, hey, I made it. It landed on a C-stand. Do not use a cable like that. And the reason is because of what you're doing with the audio interface, because of all the data that's being transferred, that's probably gonna work for just a low-powered mouse or something that isn't transferring a lot of information. But something like an audio interface, that is 9 times out of 10 is not going to work. And if it does work, then buy about 50 of those and keep them on hand. So what you would do in that situation is still keep the audio interface near you and just buy a extended 1/4 inch cable or extended XLR cable to go out of your interface, right? So we want to connect our interface to our iPad. And let me show you what this looks like. In the case of the 4 Plus, and this is one of the reasons I love the 4 Plus, super, super simple to do, right? So here's our interface, here's our cable. It's got a lightning cable, and essentially what this is it's got this guy built into it, which is really, really key. The key here is we want to be able to connect to our device as well as power it at the same time. So I'm going to plug this into this iPad. You can see the screen, and as soon as I plug it in, you're going to see a pop-up here in just a second, and it's going to say, oh, and I just messed it up, current audio device, iConnect 4 Plus. Let's unplug it, and I'll plug it back in so you can see that happen. So it's going to switch back to headphone. All right, there we go. And let's plug it in. And you'll see that pop up. So that pop up, when you see that on a device like this, and you hit OK or it dismisses automatically, that's going to let you know that this device is a supported device, which again means that we have this in office. We can provide support for this. And it's going to work 9 times out of 10, right? If it doesn't work, you can email us and we're going to say, let's plug in our 4 Plus, figure it out for you, which is great. So again, that's one of the benefits of buying a supported device like the 4 Plus, is it's going to be a way smoother transition than just picking any interface and hoping it works. So in the case of this, again, using my 4 Plus, I've got power to it using the power adapter that came with it. It's connected to my device, which is great. I want to show you a few things, and then I'm going to hop over to this other iPad. The way this is set up, we have to use this camera to show you some of the hardware stuff, and then I'll show you some of the software things over here. Let me show you one of my favorite features. Using an audio interface with Playback is just as simple as plugging it in, right? And you're going, well, we're 36 minutes into this webinar, and you're saying it's simple. Well, all the beginning stuff doesn't matter what interface you use. We need to talk about that. Make sure of the firmware stuff, making sure we have updated our OS, or make sure we don't update too early. But using an audio interface with Playback is really, really simple. And let me show you why. So again, I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to unplug this for a second. And you can see we're back to just the built-in iPad speaker. So I want to go over to our buses page. Right? And when you use Premium, you get this buses tab that's going to show you all your different buses. So you get 10 buses that are built in, and you can see here on each of these, they are automatically routed to however many outputs my interface has. In this case, I'm using the iPad speakers, which are stereo. So it sees 2 outputs, and it's pre-routed each of these to those different outputs. If I was just using just click and pad, right? I could go into settings and I could turn on auto pan, and let's go back here. Oops, let's not go to the manual. Let's go back here, go to buses, and it's gonna split all that stuff for me, which is really, really great. So let's turn off auto pan and go back to where we were. So buses here, right? There's all our bus names. So 1/2, all that stuff is automatically routed for us using something called smart routing. You know, if you're overwhelmed by this and you think, I'm gonna have to buy this interface, I'm gonna have to learn it. Let me again show you how simple this is. So we've got 1/2 plugged in here. I'm gonna plug in my interface and watch what happens to those numbers. So we get our pop-up, and then there, check out all those numbers. So the routing for each of these has changed based on how many outputs that interface has. So we have pre-routed, we've made decisions for you using something called smart routing to route your outputs, your buses to outputs on your device. So if I have a four output device, I plug that into my iPad or iPhone, same exact thing would happen, but each of these would be routed to only 4 outputs, which that's really great. One of my other favorite things here is I could go into vocals. Let's make this output 2, hit done. Let's unplug this, right? And you see we go back to 1 and 2. Let's plug it back in. Right, and you see it remembers that change that I made. I changed it to output 2, and it's going to remember that per device. So when you're using the 4 Plus or any audio interface with Playback and using smart routing, when you plug that in, it's going to automatically route outputs to buses to outputs, and then it's going to automatically remember the changes you make. So to me, that's one of the really, really key features, and that's one of the things that makes Playback really simple when you're using an audio interface. So you don't have to go through song by song and make your routings, or every time you drag your file for your software into another file, have to redo your routings. You do it once using buses to outputs, and everything is going to automatically happen for you, which is really, really cool. So let me show you a few other things. Let's switch to this other iPad so I can show you on the screen some of these settings. So I'm gonna go back into the settings section here. I'm gonna go into buses. And in this situation, I'm only doing 2 outputs, so it's outputting over the HDMI. I'm actually not going to use this for sound, since we're just using the HDMI cable, but I'm using a stereo signal. So here's buses to outputs, right? And we see this in the tab. A couple things we can do here. One, we can change outputs. Oh, yep. Let's listen to what the lady says. She said, turn off auto pan, so I did that. So now I could go back here. I can select output. I can do output 1, output 2, or 1 and 2. So let's make this output 2. Right, and I change that. Let's make this output 1. I can change that, and you see that change happen for the buses that I want it to. And again, if I plug this out and plug this HDMI cable back in, unplug it, plug it back in, it's going to remember those changes. The other thing I could do here that's really, really key is let's actually rename our buses. So I can swipe to the left and get this edit feature here, and let's see what bus I was on, keys. So let's change keys to piano. We have piano. Let's change keys to keys 2 for whatever reason. I'm going to hit edit. It's going to give me a pop-up to change the bus name. So let's again make this keys 2. I'm going to hit done. And then you're going to get another pop-up that's going to let you edit the bus abbreviation. So the abbreviation is what shows up in the app. There's only so much space you can have, so you want to make sure you choose a name that fits. So I'll probably do keys 2, but without a space, so that I know that fits. I'm going to hit done, right? And that's going to change the name there and save that. So I could change that bus setting. Now, one of the things our support team helps people with all the time, and I think Tim did a video in our MultiTracks.com official Facebook group showing how to do this, but the question we get often is, how do I separate click and guide? So you've got one direct box here. I just plug click into this, and by default, click and guide are going down the same output. But what if I want to split to 2 separate direct boxes? How do I do that, right? So let's go back to Playback, and you'll look and see click and guide right now are set to come out of the same bus. So very practically, that means that's going to come out of one output. But let's see if we can change that. So the way I want to do this is I want to say, okay, I look at all my buses. What of these buses do I not need? What do I want to change to something else? For the sake of this, let's say I always have a drummer, so I'm not going to need drums in my tracks. I'm going to go to the drum bus here. I'm going to hit edit, and I'm going to call this guide. Okay, we'll hit done. Next, I'm going to get my abbreviation, and again, I want to make sure I change that. So let's call this guide. All right, and let's go to click here, and let's edit that to just say click. You're probably kind of catching my drift, see what I'm going to do here. And this is click guide, so let's change it to click. And I hit done. Now, I'm going to set both of these to be output 1. Right? It's worth noting when I do this, if I use AutoPan, AutoPan is not going to automatically split the other guide to 1. I don't believe it will. So I want to make sure, instead of using AutoPan, I'm just going to manually make these changes. These 2 on 1, the rest would be on 2. So I could go through, just for the sake of you seeing exactly how to do this, we'll route everything else out here to 2. Okay. And let's change that to 2. So now the way we have this set up, click and guide are going to come out of separate discrete, well, in this case, they would come out of the same output because I routed them both to 1. Let's pretend we had a multi-output interface 2, right? and then these could be 3 and 4. But I'm for now going to leave that set to 1. Those buses are going to be separated out, going to go to separate outputs if I want them to. The last piece we have to do, and I'm going to jump ahead to this tab for a second, and then we'll come back and camp out here, is I need to make sure these are every possible track that can be routed to any bus in my on my device. I want to make sure anything that has click in it or guide in it is routed to the particular one. So one, cowbells and click, we don't want that. So I'm going to change this to aux, right? I got rid of that drum bus, so I'm going to change it to aux. Guide non-dynamic, by default, is going to click, so I'm going to change it to guide, right? Because I just made that change. Guide dynamic is going to click, so let's change that, right? And then you can see some of the drum stuff in here is set to guide, so I would go and change that to maybe aux, so that any drum tracks that I have unmuted would go to aux instead of that particular bus. So that's a bit of work, but the nice thing about this is once you do this, every single time you plug your interface back in, no matter what songs you load, this change is going to happen automatically for you, which is really, really cool. Now, since we're in this tab, I'm going to talk about this for a second. This is our tracks tab. So again, we were in buses earlier. Buses controls routing our buses to outputs on our interface. Tracks controls routing tracks to buses on our device. And what's cool is we use something called smart routing. So every single possible track type, whether you're using cloud, whether you're using playback rentals, app tracks, no matter what you're doing, load it into your device. Those track names are already in this tracks tab, and we've used smart routing to route them to 1 of 10 buses. So again, what's cool here is I've got roads routed to keys 2. Let's go in and let's change that to piano. Maybe I want to separate that out a little more and put it in the piano bus for whatever reason. Same thing with Mellotron. So what's cool about this is we automatically route all of these tracks to different buses, but you can also go in and make changes to all those buses at any time. And those are going to save, again, to your device. So when you plug in your device, again, then all that stuff is going to be saved to it and is going to follow along with it. So let's take another quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about, so we talked about how to get from the interface to the device, to the iPad or iPhone. Let's talk about how to get out of the interface into our sound console. Again, if you have any questions, post those in the comments and we'll get to those. But I want to show you another quick commercial here, talking about a product that we launched probably 3 months ago that is our brand new Charts product. Charts allows you to go to the website, find a chart for any song in our catalog that we have a chart for. If not, you can request it. And when you go there, you're going to see that the chart perfectly matches the arrangement you're getting. So if you buy No Longer Slaves Studio, you're going to get a chart that matches that arrangement. If you buy No Longer Slaves, the live version, you're going to get a chart that matches that. You don't have to worry about going in and making edits to your chart. It's going to perfectly line up with the sections in playback so that it matches, and it's the correct chords, which is really, really key. So I want to show you a quick video from Russell, who is our product owner for Charts, where he talks through the different features. So take a look at this, and let's dive right in.
Hey guys, Russell here from the products team at MultiTracks.com, and today I'm going to walk through customizing a chart on the web. First, we're going to log into our MultiTracks.com account and head to a song page. You'll see I'm here on the You Are Life by Hillsong Worship song page, looking at the overview. I'm going to go over here and click on the charts icon, and that's going to take me to where I can customize my charts. Right off the bat, you're going to see how many options for customizing charts there are. Every single key is available to you. Whatever key your team is playing in, you can choose that filter and it'll instantly change the chart to whatever key. There's the option to choose capo, if you have guitar players that are going to play with capo. You'll see there are 3 different chart types when you're looking at these filters. There's chords and lyrics for the musicians. There's just lyrics if a singer doesn't need all the chords that the instrumentalists will be playing. And for the most simple chart type, there's song map. When you click on song map, it's going to take you to just the arrangement of the song with the MD notes. Here is where you'll see any sort of dynamic cues, anything that the band might need to know for that specific section. But today we're going to go with chords and lyrics. There are 4 different ways to display the chords in your chart. There's chords, there's numbers, there's numerals, and finally there's a do-re-mi filter. You can choose between a 2-column and a 1-column layout for your chart. And finally, you can choose between a full chart where every single section has all of the lyrics and the chords, or you can go with a condensed chart. which takes all of the lyrics and the chords that are in the first chorus and leaves them there. But every time that that chorus repeats, it just says chorus instead of having all the information inside of it. This will make for a much smaller chart if you're trying to conserve room on your page. There are other filters here at the bottom, song map, section outline, and MD notes that you can choose to leave in or take out. Once you have the final chart that you want to download, head back up to the top, and if you've already purchased the chart, you'll see a download button right here. Click on it, and just like that, you've downloaded your customized chart for UR Life. And here we have it open, and it's just like any other PDF. You've got a 2-page chart with all your customized options. One final note to remember is that once you've purchased the chart for a song, you have the ability to go back and download as many customized versions of that chart as your team needs. That's all you need to know to customize charts.
All right, so we are back. So I'm just checking out the chat room here. Chat room, or I don't know what you would call it. It's the chat, whatever this is. Comments, there we go, comments. I'm going like old school. Yeah, it looks like, hey, Mike joined us. Good to see you, Mike. Looks like people are watching. Yeah, this is great. Josiah, good to see you, buddy. Tim Pacina, he's a good guy. Simon is here. Simon's from the UK. He joins us almost every webinar. Good to see you, Simon. So I just posted a few links here. Tyler's posted a few too. So the link to charts there, again, charts, I think probably about 3 months ago we launched this. Super, super cool. One of the things I really like the most about it is the fact that the chart matches the multi-track. So whatever version, whatever arrangement you've got, you know it's going to match, and it's the correct chords, which is key. You also get the song map, like Russell said, and some really, really cool features. So I'd encourage you to check out charts, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. So Russell, thanks for that and taking us through that. So again, we've talked about how to get from the interface to our device. Let's talk about how to get from the interface to our sound console. This is going to be super short, super easy, super quick. So I'm going to head back over to the 4+ here. Okay, let's get this organized so you can see it. Right, and again, the 4+ has multiple outputs. So in this case, we have 4 outputs, 5 and 6 are headphones. So what I want to do is connect a 1/4" cable out of the 1/4" output of my interface. And then what you want to use is a direct box, same type of deal you would use for your acoustic guitar, bass guitar. If you remember in the beginning, we talked about what happens if your bass player calls out sick. Same exact kind of direct box, nothing special. And then you're just going to plug into that. Out of your direct box is your XLR cable. And the nice thing about this, because this is kind of a different thing, because this is tracks, it's electronic stuff, it's computers, people get scared and they go, well, what do I do after this? It's exactly like any other instrument. So from this point on, direct box on, it's just like your acoustic guitar, just like your bass guitar. It's going to show up at the console, and then you're going to want to communicate to your sound engineer. The click line and the guide line, we want to make sure is not in the house, and it's only in our in-ears, right? So the way to do that is pull our fader down. Our board might work where we can actually mute that fader. And then we would just want to turn up the aux send or the monitor feed. Or if we're using the live mix from Digital Audio Labs, we'll just adjust and bring that part of the sound up. But again, make sure that's in our in-ears, not in the house. And that's going to be really important. The other thing here is, and some of you that are maybe more experienced are going, he needs to say it, he needs to say it. If your interface has balanced outputs, the Play Audio 12 from iConnectivity is kind of a recent thing I can think of. You can typically skip the direct box, right? And if it has balanced outputs, what you can do is come right out of this. You get a 1/4" cable to XLR. The XLR side would be a male side, and then that would just plug right into your snake, so you could skip the DI. If you have a question about that, again, best thing to do would be to go to Sweetwater, talk to your sales engineer. Again, if you're like, I need to buy it right now, will just give me an answer. I think the safest thing would be always use a direct box. If you have any questions or feel like you can get by at balance outs, definitely try it, go for it. In case you're worried, use the direct box. One of the key things about a direct box too is this little ground lift here. Right, so I can press that and that's gonna take off hum. If I have hum in my signal. And if your stage is like every other church stage or performance stage in the entire world, then there's going to be hum from the lights when you plug your amp in, plug your direct box in. So use that DI, that ground lift to lift that, which is really, really cool. So that's it, guys. Again, we got through this. There's a lot up front, some of the basic stuff. But again, it's pretty simple. I would encourage you, if you do one thing, go to this address, multitracks.com/. multitracks.com/playback, multitracks.com/playback. You'll see all the features of Playback, learn about Pro, Premium, and Intro, the free version, and you can download the new version 5.0.9 today to start using Click to Pad. So that's the one thing I want to ask and encourage you to do. And yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, we're going to be hanging out for a little bit and would love to say hey to you. Would love to answer any questions you have. But again, thanks so much for watching and hope to see you here soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.